What's going on, guys? Today we're going to be looking at everything we know about Cyberpunk 2077 so far, with all the details we have from 2018 going into 2019 and the new year. This will include character progression and customization, first-person perspective, third-person perspective, vehicles, combat, the world, combat systems, melee systems, apartments, romances, release dates, weapons, stats, leveling, enemies, characters, and NPCs, as well as multiplayer. Cyberpunk 2077 is a single-player story-driven experience made by CD Projekt Red. It is a first-person RPG with skills, stats, branching dialogues, and quests that the player can alter. It's also based on Mike Pondsmith's Cyberpunk 2020 pen and paper game, released in 1988. The game is currently fully playable from start to finish, with the polishing phase being the next big undertaking for CD Projekt Red. Cyberpunk 2077 is releasing on PC, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, and although not announced yet, may also come out for next generation consoles. CD Projekt Red ran the game on a 1080 Ti and Intel i7-8700K, had a frame rate capped at 30 frames per second for the gameplay demos, but expect the final release to be more optimized for mid-range PCs and console hardware. This is due to the optimization process, which began at the beginning of development. CD Projekt Red has stated, contrary to what many believe, that the hardware will not limit the game. Cyberpunk 2077 takes place in the free state of North California in the coastal dystopia of Night City. This vision of a cyberpunk world opts to add in a full day and night cycle and exude future California much more than previous cyberpunk works, which was mostly about perpetual darkness and rain. The timeline of events have been altered by CD Projekt Red from the original Pondsmith era cyberpunk timeline to fit with the events that will happen in their vision of the game. This means that lore and the history of Night City may be flipped and jostled around. Night City is divided into 6 districts. City Center is a dense commercial sector filled with megacorporations, described as a cluster of neon and quintessence of luxury, and taking up residence in Corpo Plaza. We have Watson, where the gameplay demo largely takes place, which is populated by immigrants and is a fusion of Asian markets and bazaars. It's near the Arasaka waterfront and Little China subsectors. Westbrook is next and features Japantown, which is favored by tourists and houses some of Night City's wealthiest individuals. Haywood features a mostly Latino population, although is suffering from an increasing gang problem. It's a very central location flanked by city center and corporate zones and is a massive housing district. There's also the industrial sector of Santo Domingo, a sector home to endless modernization on the east end of the city. Pacifica is the final part of the map, which is denoted by the red train lines on the lower southwest side. This is also the combat zone according to the 2077 timeline, an area of complete lawlessness, extreme poverty, and gang violence. Cyberpunk 2077 shifts from The Witcher 3's third-person perspective and opts for a first-person perspective experience, mainly due to CD Projekt Red's belief that this will help with the immersion and storytelling of the game. There's also a reasoning that the map of Cyberpunk is very much vertically built, and this means that looking up at tall skyscrapers owned by megacorporations will be more impactful in first person as you see them towering over you. If there was a third person, the scale of the world would be diminished, although if mod support is available post-launch, you'll most likely be seeing a fan-made third-person perspective. There are options like photo mode, third-person cutscenes, and driving in third person as confirmed features for those really wanting to see their characters and how they look. There will be 0 loading screens, making the world feel immersive and seamless. In Cyberpunk 2077, you play as V, who is fully customizable, versus Geralt from The Witcher, who is very much set in stone personality and looks-wise. This customization includes choosing your character's gender, body, face, hair, tattoos, and clothing options. You will be able to give your character a first and last name, meaning that V is only an alias. This is meant to make your journey through Night City distinctly your own. Your backstory will also be customizable and will influence what happens to you in the main questline. Your backstory includes role models like Saburo Arasaka, who runs sketchy megacorp Arasaka, rocker boy and rebel Johnny Silverhand, and grizzled solo veteran Morgan Blackhand. This may hint at narrative paths, which include you siding with the people of Night City or deadly megacorporations. You can also choose key life events and why you are in Night City, which will influence your story path and dialogue options. There isn't a fixed class system, and this allows you to play your character as you see fit and in any combination of a netrunner, techie, and solo class. You will run into other classes in your adventures through Night City, like rocker boys and fixers, who have a unique array of their own personal skills. Netrunners are hackers and are focused on stealth and assassinations. You can hack into a network of enemies and quick hack them to disable their weapon links and cyberware. Techies are the MacGyvers of the cyberpunk world with the ability to craft items and equipment on the fly. Solos are all about raw firepower and speed with the option to be movement ability focused or heavy weapons focused. Character progression is handled through leveling up and installing new cybernetics. You can level up stats like strength, constitution, intelligence, reflexes, tech, and cool. These will scale with you and increase as you level up and install cyberware. There are also skills, perks, and mods in addition to give your character a lethality boost. Skills will increase as you successfully perform actions like hacking, crafting, and with weapon proficiency. This seems to suggest you can craft new weapons like in The Witcher 3, and they can break down over time. Every time you complete a mission or side mission, you gain street cred, and you unlock higher leveled vendors and NPCs to talk to and buy cyberware, augmentations, and weapons from, as well as more dangerous jobs from fixers like Dexter Deshawn. Fixers will bring a multitude of jobs in Night City, and there will presumably be higher leveled fixers than Dexter Deshawn available to you for more dangerous quests as you progress through the world. The quests in Cyberpunk 2077 will allow for emergent gameplay mechanics to be displayed. This means that there will be multiple ways to trigger quests and events that are based on the creativity of the player. This also means that little regular occurrences in Night City can lead to quests being triggered, from simple things like getting a phone call and a text to go pick up groceries, to eavesdropping on some gang members and seeing them later in a different district and obtaining the quest from them organically. Quests can be delivered via cell phone or intracranial cyberware, and side quests can have an impact on the main quest line. Cyberpunk 2077 will have an elaborate array of vehicles, from supercars to heavily armored military cruisers to superbikes and motorcycles, and even flying cars and aerodynes. There will be Akira-styled superbikes, police and corporate aerodynes, and ACPAs, which are armored mech suits. Vehicles will be destructible, and taking too much damage will cause them to explode. CDPR has stated in the past that the game will feature incredibly complex planes, bikes, and robots who will run on superfuel of the future, Chew-2, which is peddled by mega corporations like Petrochem. We know that there will be high-tech features on board many of the vehicles, looking at Cyberpunk 2020 lore, such as the mobile cryotank on board Trauma Team's AV to stabilize patients. The dialogue system is fluid, and NPCs will respond to you differently based on where you look, if you interrupt them, and even based on what you're wearing. You will have multiple choices and multiple targets of your responses. Cyberware may be needed to undertake some dialogue options, as a built-in translator may be needed to interact with those who don't speak English. Due to the amount of immigrants and diversity in Night City, this may play a large part. Relationships are also important in Cyberpunk 2077, and there are options to form long-term romances and one-night stands. Your character can be bisexual, gay or lesbian, and your relationships in Night City will be reflective on your sexual orientation. You can have sex with a range of NPCs, and they will have their own sexual orientations and preferences, and you can have big, complicated relationships with them spanning the course of the game. Full frontal nudity is in the game, as well as prostitutes, some of which you can order via Night City vending machines and are called Joy Boys and Joy Girls. There will also be companions like Jackie Wells and T-Bug from the gameplay demo throughout the game. Learning about the lore and the world of Cyberpunk can be complicated. There are so many little details, terms, and aspects of the world that take time to really digest and analyze. Learning about the world of The Witcher was a process of looting and reading books, and that's evolved in Cyberpunk 2077 to the inspection system. Items you find in the world can be put further under the microscope and analyzed using the inspection system to learn about its background, origins, uses, and more. This system can be seen in the Spiderbot plug V-Inspects at the Maelstrom hideout. The inspection system also branches out to ads, which can be interacted with to show you a waypoint to whatever stores or vendors that specific product is being sold at. Apartments are a place in Cyberpunk 2077 to come back and relax in, bring a romantic friend, or surf the internet, or experience brain dances in the comfort of your four walls. You can have multiple apartments in Night City, and as you progress through the ranks of becoming an established mercenary, your apartments will be more lavish and presumably on a higher floor, closer to the upper class and the corporate agent dwellings. We won't be able to join factions or gangs like Trauma Team, the Maelstrom, or mega corporations, and we won't be able to use Trauma Team as a method of revival post-death. There also isn't any reputation system designed for factions. Your reputation will be measured by a general street cred, which you can increase in missions and quests. Weapons come in a couple of varieties, including smart weapons, tech weapons, and even melee weapons like katanas and mantis blades. Weapons also generally have alternate firing modes, and you can mod many weapons to change their type to smart, tech, and power. Weapon rarities come in a color and star rating system, with green being common and purple being epic or legendary. Common has 2 out of 5 stars, and epic has 4 out of 5. Melee weapons can also take mods, as the Gamescom 2018 Cyberpunk demo featured a katana with a bullet deflecting shield. There are no plans currently for weapon skins. Damage numbers can be turned off in the HUD if you feel like that's stripping you of immersion or you find it plain annoying. Dismemberment is a key feature in the game, and you can wound enemies by dismembering them. You can also do lethal and non-lethal takedowns, which might mean you can use enemies as meat shields. Dual wielding is hinted at after seeing Jackie dual wielding pistols as his weapon of choice. Aiming down the sights next to cover props your aimer around the wall, so you won't have to manually lean in or aim when next to cover due to their cover system. The cover system isn't sticky, meaning that you'll still have a free range of motion when next to or aiming around cover. There are also destructible environments, but the level of destructibility is still up in the air. Cyberware will also be a key feature, and you won't be able to play through the game without some basic cyberware, which squashes the chance of doing a purist, no cyberware playthrough. A neural processor is needed to use many functions in the game, such as reflex boosters and weapon and vehicle links, so this might be one of the basic cyberware requirements going forward. Again, a language translator may be needed in the game to talk to everyone, as we see V's language translation device translate the Asian lady in the beginning of the demo, but not the Maelstrom ganger at the end. Different language chips may be required to talk to some of the NPCs in Night City. A Ripper Doc installs and can presumably remove cyberware as well, and there are illegal Ripper Doctors operating in the city that can provide illegal black market ware. There is a humanity cost associated with all cyberware, which will have adverse gameplay effects if we install too many cybernetics. We won't be able to become cyberpsychotic, and cyberpsychosis will be reserved for other characters and NPCs that we cross. This is due to the fact that if we were to develop cyberpsychosis, the story would become derailed. Loyalty discounts can apply at Ripper Docs if you visit them enough, similarly to how restaurants give you a free coffee or meal after a fixed number of visits. You can see that reflected down below on the screen at the Ripper Docs, where it seems V has visited twice. 6 more and she may get an increased discount rate or a free upgrade. The net is a vast section of the cyberpunk world, which will allow you to traverse the web and clash with other hostile netrunners and hackers, all trying to find or protect the deepest, darkest secrets of Night City. The net is available to all who have interface plugs and a netrunner chair. The regions in the net are reflective of the real world and are filled with malicious programs, icons, and corporate secrets for you to extract. The net has a multitude of regions, just like Night City, although they will most likely be reskinned to reflect the Cyberpunk 2020 Tron aesthetic that's featured in the original source book. Cyberpunk's music will be made in-house by composer Marcin Priest-Bilowick, Brian Mantia, and Melissa Reese. These guys have been involved with the likes of Guns N' Roses and infamous Second Son soundtrack, so they really know their stuff. Marcin worked on the epic Witcher 3 soundtrack, and the three have been tasked with making experimental music to fit the experimental world of Cyberpunk. Multiplayer is currently in research and development, although there are strong hints at a social hub in the bars of Night City, featuring minigames and being developed by Vancouver-based and outsourced Digital Escapes. This is the company that brought you Be the Zombie mode from Dying Light and have partnered with CD Projekt Red. Social hubs would act as a bridge for all players to congregate at and show off their character, as well as play minigames against friends or enemies. Cyberpunk 2077 will feature political and philosophical themes as a cornerstone, mirroring the likes of Ghost in the Shell and Blade Runner. At the same time, it will be as action-packed as movies like RoboCop and The Fifth Element. That's a brief recap of everything we know about Cyberpunk 2077 thus far. For more in-depth coverage of everything Cyberpunk 2077, make sure you follow the arcade.